On February 24th, Ukraine was invaded by Russia, and 1 month later, the war is continuing to wreak havoc. This isn't really a channel where we talk about current events, but we do talk about music history, and often that includes bands that operate under extreme and oppressive conditions. Well, now history is unfolding before our eyes. With millions of people's lives upended, music scenes that existed happily 6 weeks ago now risk vanishing completely. While I would have liked to have covered the music of Ukraine under better circumstances, it is with some sense of urgency that I do so now. That said, I'm extremely grateful to have discovered this list of bands. It turns out there's some incredibly beautiful and haunting, as well as chill, groovy, and simply fascinating music coming out of this Eastern European nation. Now, 2 quick caveats first. This is by no means a comprehensive list. Since I'm sure many of you will have additional recommendations, I encourage you to leave a comment below. And secondly, any revenue from this video will go back to these bands, or to Ukrainian charities. If you hear a band you like, consider buying their music through one of the links below, or giving them lots of plays on your favorite streaming platform. And with that, let's begin. Kurs Valüt is an electronic duo from Dnipro in eastern Ukraine. While I don't normally listen to much EDM, or as this is called, EBM, I was struck by its vivid tone and hypnoticness. Not to mention their dark mechanical vocals, which add a particularly post-apocalyptic touch. Kurs Valüt got their start playing at Module Club in Dnipro in 2017, and since became regulars. A photo posted to their social media shows the venue's staff dressed in full tactical gear, quote, preparing to defend our Dnipro city from Russian genocide. The band confirmed with me via Instagram that they are safe, and in their last update at the time of this writing, they were collecting money to buy 50 helmets for troops near their hometown. Skyrabin are one of the original Ukrainian synth-pop bands, starting in the Soviet days and later becoming a household name with a more mainstream rock sound. So while they aren't exactly an underground band, I found myself really intrigued by the darkness of their earlier music. I'm guessing this explains at least some of the coldness of Ukraine's post-punk bands today. Of course, not all Ukrainian music is dark and haunting. La Horsa Bianca, formed in 2016, plays vibrant psychedelic prog rock, tinged in 60s sunshine and curious exploration. Coming from the city of Kharkiv, which is basically at the front lines of the war, I was fortunate to video chat with bassist Eugene while he's temporarily relocated to a safer city further west.
Some of them are in other cities. Our guitarist Kirill is actually still in Kharkiv, because he's a video operator by trade and he's filming everything for posterity.
He was kind enough to share the band's first-hand experience with the war, which I'll be posting in another video. But meanwhile, he also recommended some other cool bands in the current scene.
Well, we as like a progressive psychedelic band, we're sort of an outlier. Most of the scene is nowadays much heavier than the stuff we play. There's bands like Stone Jesus, bands like Somali Yacht Club. Destructor. They're playing heavier music. It's more influenced by stoner metal. They are more popular than us, and because essentially people probably need that. There's one band who are in the probably same ballpark, heaviness-wise as us. It's called Sherpa the Tiger.
Sherpa the Tiger is one of my favorite bands on this list, in part because I really just love krautrock, and they do it exceptionally well. Their Bandcamp states that they use an arsenal of cheap, decrepit Soviet synthesizers, together with a love of ambient and cosmic music that originated in Eastern Europe during the 60s and 70s. How badly would you like to get your hands on one of these?
Would you make monkey sounds? Monkey sounds? Gee, I don't think so.
The band is from Lviv, a city that has been relatively peaceful up until recently. Normal life, however, is still put on hold. As a Facebook post from the band reads, "We've been meaning to get back to you with multiple musical announcements on our new record, the upcoming shows, and a music video. Instead of that, over the last few days, we've been busy saving our closest, supporting our army, helping refugees, and with other important wartime duties." Now, once again, I'm going to stretch the definition of underground. DakhaBrakha is probably the best known Ukrainian band in the United States, thanks in part to their appearances on Tiny Desk and KEXP. But their music is so interesting, I'm going to include them anyway. Founded by members of the Dak avant-garde theater, the group calls themselves world music, playing Ukrainian folk with a huge range of other influences. At times, even punk. Unlike most bands, DakhaBrakha is actually on tour right now outside the country so that they can raise money and support Ukraine. Now, like other Eastern European countries, classical music is huge, and there's a few musicians who have taken classical influences to some really wild places. Trust me, even if you aren't a classical fan, you'll want to keep listening here. First up is Valentina Honcharova. Born in Kyiv, she studied violin in Leningrad during the Soviet days. However, during the 80s, she took a break from the academy to experiment with free jazz and musique concrète. These home recordings were shelved for decades, finally getting released by Estonia's Shukai Records in 2020. Also, those who saw my History of Soviet Punk videos may recognize this name, Sergei Latov, brother of Egor Latov, arguably Russia's most irreverent punk. Secondly, there's Ihor Tsimbrovsky, a pianist and falsetto singer from Lviv. Tsimbrovsky recorded the ethereal album Come Angel in 1995. It's remarkably atmospheric for a work that's only piano and voice. Released as a small run of cassettes on the Polish Koko Records, the album was lost to cultural amnesia for some 2 decades before being rediscovered in 2016. And last but not least, By far, some of the most fascinating Ukrainian bands I heard were from the original alternative scene in 1980s Kyiv. A huge shout out to Nikita for recommending these bands. Kolezki Assessor was actually quite popular, but always maintained a lo-fi sound out of principle. While they delved into a wide range of genres, this song in particular really got my attention. It's like television, but dreamier. There was the noise rock of Ivanov Down, reminiscent to my American ears of The Jesus Lizard or Shellac. The band V, which fused Slavic folk music with rock and prog. And finally, a band that may have no comparison, Цукор Біла Смерть, which translates to Sugar White Death. With a name like that, it's no surprise that their music can be incredibly haunting. Led by singer Svetlana Nianiao, their music could get quite experimental. And while they didn't achieve a whole lot of popularity at the time, there has been a resurgence of interest in Svetlana's music, culminating in a stunning live session from 2020. So that's going to close this video out. Again, all revenue will go to support these bands. And if you want to yourself, there's Bandcamp links in the description below. Many of these are small artists who will certainly notice and appreciate any support. Also, what the heck? Let's listen to a few more Ukrainian bands on the way out.
Long time ago, you used to ride your skate. You used to play guitar to ride a Scotch and crush and burn the
Лізе туманом по долині, перед очима темнота суне, чорна хмара сховала носа.
Несется давно, як струн, пограти лишило